Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into the stories and facts that, well, you might not know you need. And today, we've got one that honestly sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's very real. It starts with Kryptonite. You know, that glowing green stuff, famous from the Superman comics, drains all his powers. There's always been this kind of fascination with something that powerful, hasn't there? This ultimate weakness.
Exactly. And what's really amazing here is, okay, kryptonite is fiction, right? But scientists have actually found a mineral here on Earth that, chemically speaking, it's spookily similar, but instead of, weakening superheroes, this real-world version, this kryptonite twin, it has its own kind of superpowers, very real ones, and they could genuinely change things for us. It's called Jadarite.
Jadarite. Okay. So that's our mission for this deep dive then. Unpack the story of Jadarite. We'll look into where it came from, what it actually is, its surprising properties, and why people are calling it a potential game changer for clean energy. And we're basing this discussion mainly on a really interesting piece from SciTech Daily called Jadarite, Earth's kryptonite and clean energy mineral. So let's get into it. Okay, so this kryptonite twin idea, is that just a catchy name they came up with for Jadarite, or is there really some kind of, I don't know, almost unbelievable link?
Oh, it's much more than just a nickname. It really earned that Earth's kryptonite twin label because its chemical formula, the actual list of ingredients basically, is incredibly close to a fictional label that showed up in a movie. Remember Superman Returns when Lex Luthor steals the kryptonite from the museum?
Vaguely, yeah.
Well, the label on that movie prop read sodium lithium boron silicate hydroxide. And guess what? That's exactly what Jadarite is. It's the sodium lithium boron silicate hydroxide mineral. Quite a mouthful, I know. But that specific long chemical name, that's the link. It matched the movie prop. It's just this wild coincidence, really. Definitely got people talking. Mineral experts and comic book fans.
That is genuinely bizarre. So a movie prop label becomes reality.
Yeah.
But how did we actually find this stuff? Where did it turn up?
Yeah, the real discovery, that's a story too. It was first spotted back in 2004. Some exploration geologists working for Rio Tinto, the big mining company. They were doing drilling in Serbia in the Jadar Valley, hence the name Jadarite.
Okay.
And they found this stuff, but it didn't match anything known. It was a complete unknown. So it took about 2 years, really, of hard scientific work. Experts at the Natural History Museum in London and also up in Canada at the National Research Council, they finally figured out its unique structure, its composition, and officially named it as a new mineral in 2006.
So a brand new mineral found in Serbia. Amazing. Okay, but speaking of unique, if it's the kryptonite twin, does it glow green, or is it totally different visually?
Ah, that's where the similarity completely stops. You're right to ask. The chemical formula is the link, but how it looks, totally different from that iconic green kryptonite. Real Jadarite usually just looks like a dull white or maybe off-white solid, kind of powdery sometimes.
Okay, so no dramatic glowing green rocks, then shame.
Yeah, no superhero night lights from this stuff, I'm afraid. But interestingly, it does have its own little visual trick. Under ultraviolet light, UV light, it actually shows this pinkish-orange fluorescence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's pretty unassuming normally, but, hit it with a black light, and it's got this subtle hidden color.
A dull white rock with a secret UV glow. Okay, not quite Superman's nemesis, but still cool. So if it doesn't weaken superheroes, what is its real superpower? Why is it super in its own right, like the article says?
Right. Its real power, its significance, comes down to 2 elements it contains in good amounts, lithium and boron. That phrase, super in its own right, that actually came from Michael Page, a scientist over at ANSTO, Australia's nuclear science and technology organization. Because, while it has 0 supernatural powers, Jadarite is potentially a really important new source for both lithium and boron.
Lithium! We hear that word constantly now, don't we? EVs, batteries. But just how critical is it? And what makes this Jadarite find such a potential game changer compared to, say, other lithium sources?
It's absolutely fundamental. Lithium is kind of the bedrock for this whole shift to cleaner energy. It's the key element in the high-performance batteries we need for, everything. Phones, laptops, electric cars, obviously. And maybe even more importantly, the huge grid-scale batteries we need to store energy from renewables like solar and wind.
Right.
So as the world tries to move away from fossil fuels, the demand for lithium is it's soaring, exploding, really, which puts massive pressure on the current supply chains.
Okay, so huge demand.
Exactly. And that's where Jadarite comes in as this potential game changer. See, the deposit where they found it in Serbia, the Jadar deposit, it isn't just another lithium source. It's considered one of the largest lithium deposits found anywhere, period.
Wow. one of the largest in the world.
Yeah. The sheer size of it means it could potentially supply a huge amount of lithium for decades to come. That could, really shake up the global picture for critical minerals, maybe reduce dependency on just a few places, and help speed up that green energy transition.
That's massive potential. But okay, finding it is one thing. Getting it out and using it is another, right? What are the big challenges in actually turning this discovery into like usable battery stuff? And who's working on that?
That's a great question, and that's exactly where organizations like NSTO, the Australian nuclear science body I mentioned, really come into play. NSTO is one of the key players in something called the Australian Critical Minerals R&D Hub. They work alongside Geoscience Australia. They're the ones mapping out resources, and CSIRO, the National Science Agency.
Okay, so like a research powerhouse team.
Pretty much. And the hub's whole mission is basically to bridge that gap you just mentioned, connect the research labs with actual industry, make sure Australia can actually access, process, and use these critical minerals effectively, strengthen the whole supply chain here and internationally.
So they're kind of like the practical problem solvers, turning rocks into usable tech. Can you give an example of what Anesto actually does?
Absolutely. They work directly with mining companies and processors. They develop the specific chemical processes needed to extract valuable elements, especially for tricky new minerals like jadarite, which might need different techniques compared to, say, more established lithium sources.
Right, it's not one size fits all.
Exactly, and they've been successful. Anesto has managed to produce battery-grade lithium chemicals, the really pure stuff you need from different types of minerals, things like spodumene, which is a common hard rock source, or lepidolite. But crucially, they've also developed processes specifically for jadarite. So they're providing that vital technical know-how to help miners actually get this lithium out and ready for the battery market, helping meet those energy transition challenges.
Okay, so the science and tech side sounds incredibly promising for clean energy. But, whenever you talk about digging something valuable out of the ground on a large scale, there's always more to the story, isn't there? It makes you wonder, what are the other viewpoints? What are people, maybe the public or other experts, saying about jadarite beyond just the science?
That's a really important point because, yeah, even the most exciting science doesn't happen in a vacuum. And looking at the comments, the public discussion around that SciTech Daily article we're using, it's clear there are some pretty strong and varied perspectives out there. And we should be clear, these are views from the public reflecting those real-world debates. We're just relaying them, not endorsing them.
Right, just reporting what's being said.
Exactly. So you see a few main things popping up. A lot of concern revolves around the environment. People worried about destroying fertile farmland, kicking people off their land where families have lived for generations. And big concerns about potential pollution, especially of water sources like the nearby Drina River.
Serious local impacts.
Yeah. Then there are the geopolitical and economic worries. Questions about who really benefits from this massive project. Some comments express distrust towards the mining company or concerns about, foreign influence or money going to potentially corrupt officials, that kind of thing.
Okay, so trust and economic fairness issues.
Right. And then there was also a fair bit of skepticism about the actual impact it would have. Some people argued, well, even if it's a big deposit, is it really going to change the global lithium game that much? Is it just a tiny percentage overall? Or questioning if projects like this alone can realistically help us hit those ambitious climate targets given the sheer scale of the CO2 problem. Some called it, maybe a bit of clickbait.
Right, so questioning the hype, essentially. Wow, that covers a lot of ground. From local environmental justice to global market dynamics and climate skepticism, it really shows how something like finding a new mineral isn't simple at all. It immediately gets tangled up in all these complex human issues. And our goal here, like you said, is just to present these different facets, these views from the source material, so you, the listener, can get a sense of that complexity surrounding new resource exploitation. So let's try and wrap this up. We've gone on quite a journey in this deep dive. From Superman's fictional weakness, Kryptonite, to this actual real-world mineral, Jadarite. We've seen it's got that weirdly similar chemical name, sodium, lithium, boron, silicate hydroxide. Wild. But its real power isn't fictional. It's in the lithium and boron it holds, making it potentially super important for clean energy. Even while, as we just discussed, its development brings up some really significant environmental and social questions.
Absolutely. So what's the takeaway for you listening? Well, I think understanding materials like jadarite helps us see the actual nuts and bolts of the technology shaping our future. It shows the amazing science involved in discovery, but also, crucially, the really complex path from finding something to actually using it responsibly. It involves geology, chemistry, engineering, but also navigating those tricky environmental and social issues. It's a reminder that, progress isn't just about what we can do technologically, but how we choose to do it.
That's a great way to put it. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Isn't it interesting how sometimes our stories, our cultural myths like Kryptonite, seem to echo or almost foreshadow real scientific discoveries? And what kind of responsibility does that place on us as a society to really look hard at both the incredible promise and the potential downsides of these new discoveries that could fundamentally shape our world? Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into Jadarite Earth's surprising Kryptonite twin and its complex role in our energy future. If you found this interesting, please do give this deep dive a like, subscribe for more discussions like this. Check out any affiliate links in the show notes if you'd like to support us. And definitely let us know in the comments what other topics you'd like us to unpack next. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll talk to you on the next one.